Well, now that we got the proper recognition put out to those I felt were deserving of the recognition for being my great support behind me, who are not only Game of Thrones fans, but also love the mythical ideas about dragons as much as I do, and I'm sure Amelia Clark does. It's now to kind of continue on with the narrations of Game of Thrones 2, Khaleesi's Dragon Spirit. This again is Narrations 6. Um, as y'all know, was the honeymoon now being over, and she's going back to her queenly duties and expecting William to do what he's expected to do by taking all the necessary lessons to be familiarize himself with how politics are done in the seven unknown kingdoms for the kingdoms of the realm. The spy for um, the woman in red, Melisandre, and this new distant cousin of the former King Lannis, knows that, well, he's probably going to be discovered eventually, because Daenerys is a little bit smarter than what people give her credit for. So he makes his escape just in the nick of time as Daenerys and William are now back, and he's about ready to start. William's ready to start his lessons as an additional type of support for George R.R. Martin, because I couldn't find anything like a stage prop, like medieval style textbook or anything. So I, without claiming any credits, rents, royalties, privileges, etc., you know how that works, used the covers for each of the series to symbolize the like the textbook or scrolls type chapters, because William has to learn history about the Game of Thrones. What is the Game of Thrones about? How it all came about before William even came into their world. And so it goes from series 1 all the way up to the second series, Death of Joffrey. I mean, obviously he was not a very good young king, and he was very brutal to people, torturous to animals. And it gets into 3, kind of gets into a little more of Daenerys' success in getting Meereen. Then to 4, where she thinks all men must die. But I don't think she means that literally. I mean, because you think about it, if there were no men, who would Daenerys mate with? I mean, think about it. All men includes Jon Snow, because he's a man. So, I think it's more or less she was basically what she was trying to say, and because Daenerys is pretty high intellect. She has a higher IQ than the average human, William, who has shown up in her world. And William's taken note of this because humans only have sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing, and thought. And so it's finally revealed that those are the 7 known kingdoms, including Daenerys, Stormborn of the House Targaryen. They have twice as many. So they have 12 senses. Okay, so her IQ and her intellect compared to an actual human being is going to be double that. And the others, of course, are in Valerian, so who knows what those other senses are. She could think circles around him, but she doesn't try to take advantage of him like that because she knows she's stronger than him physically and mentally. So then, of course, Tyrion, about the history of Tyrion, how he got to meet her, and somehow they have some kind of a friendship going. Then there's the fact that where Arya finally gets to a mature point in her life, as Daenerys is now invading King's Landing with these Dothraki, the savage race. In 7, which I guess HBO is hoping that this would be used as a cover, and I think it should be used as a cover in my opinion. The end begins, and it's where you see a dragon blowing blue fire. Okay, so it could be quite the scary battle here. What's undetermined yet, okay, if Jon Snow becomes a White Walker and he keeps the others at bay, well then the one that I did, Game of Thrones, The Missing Link, Lost Page of Time, would have to be kind of somewhat edited, and that wouldn't be a problem. On the other hand, should Daenerys herself become like a White Walker, the most that would probably happen to her, because dragon glass can't shatter her because she has something that other White Walkers don't. You know, she was born of fire, so you can't burn her or cremate her. And at the same time, dragon glass ain't gonna make her shatter like glass, because she, being born of fire, is not gonna be like the White Walkers themselves, where if dragon glass usually shatter into bits and pieces. So it goes into what would be from a human understanding of the dark blue star shining brightly in the Valyrian night sky, that she's a type of cryogenics, except instead of being in a cryogenics chamber, it's kind of like if you read the movie Conan the Barbarian. Okay, there was this pedestal type thing that the queen that married Conan laid upon. Well, in the elements beyond the wall, if Daenerys is laying on that, you know, okay, one, that's kind of cool. She, again, it takes 5 years for anyone to decompose, even longer if you're out in the icy elements beyond the wall. So she's well preserved. And that would leave open for a movie then spinning off of this one called Return of the Dragon Queen. And I have the title, I just haven't developed it yet because I'm still paying close attention as to how this is going to turn out. You know, what's going to happen between Jon Snow and Daenerys Stormborn of the House of Targaryen. So whatever is decided at that point decides how the link up to my movie scripts are going to turn out. Because again, I'm not making anything off this, just experience and of course expenses, which is not a profit. So, and again, all this that I'm doing is to honor the author George R.R. Martin. So this is would be his complete history lesson that he has to take. Then William has to take what is considered to be the Realm of the Kingdom's geography lessons. Now, what those entail is that William has to know something about the known continents. You know, anything beyond the known 7 known kingdoms has never been explored. In reference to my mini-series of 10 episodes, which starts out with a prologue and ends with an epilogue, there had been explorers now that came from beyond the known 7 kingdoms, known as dragon warriors, who would be actors and actresses from China. The Dragon Slayers, who are 2 actors and an actress from Japan. And of course, the highly skilled assassins from beyond the known edge of the world of Setharos, which would be The Rock, if he's interested, and they would be kind of like an Egyptian-like similar type descent. So, other than that, nobody's really gone beyond the edge of the known world because, you know, probably like for humans on Earth, they probably figured the world's flat, you know, you go too far and, you fall to your death, you know. So they've never been brave enough to do that, but for them it'd be quite the surprise in the lost period of time for others to come from beyond there. So, you know, who knows what they think? They probably are gods or something. You know, and they helped this distant cousin of Lannis to throw Daenerys off the throne. She may have been in King's Landing for about 6 months, which kind of is a semi-referral to the last season 8 and beyond to season 7. But she only got to hold the throne for 3 days. And unlike human females, Targaryens can have a baby after 6 months, whereas human females, it takes about 9 months. So there you go. There might be a child born of Jon Snow and Daenerys. If so, then it goes quite well, along with the lost page of time, that nobody is going to allow an heir to the throne from Daenerys and Jon Snow, because, I mean, the woman in red, first of all, is not Jesus Christ. She's not going to raise somebody from the dead, and we all worship the woman in red. No. And then you got the problem that the Dothraki, if you look back at the time during season 1, what did Khal Drogo say? Oh yeah, I'm going to rape the women and the young girls. I mean, think about it. Rape is like a crime. You know, nobody's going to support a queen who says, oh yeah, that's cool, let's just go ahead and rape women and young girls. I mean, that makes her like an evil queen, right? So nobody's going to support that. And the fact that she brought Dothraki over makes her look really, really bad. So that's her very, very first loss. And that's, again, just to re-edify or review again, is where the visionary tells her, this is something that you did wrong. Her brother Viserys was kind of going too gung-ho about it. And, of course, Khal Drogo punished him for wearing gold over his head, which would kill anybody instantly, even if one is not a human from planet Earth, but of Daenerys Stormborn's world. Daenerys, on the other hand, didn't go too gung-ho forward like her brother Viserys. She was more subtle and seductive about it. She figures that, she can get somewhere either by picking out suitors to marry for political gain and taking these Dothraki to help her get the throne. Well, she had the right idea, but she chose the wrong people. And that's why the visionary said in the last page of time, had you waited a little longer, there would have been this prophecy about one not of your world, not of any 7 known kingdoms, that would get you this Iron Throne. So for her, that was a painful learning experience. And now she said, this is a mistake. Like the visionary said, I'm a true queen if I learn from my mistakes, and this is a mistake I will never, ever repeat again. And she's kept to her word thus far. So he gets the geography part done. In the meantime, Daenerys has quite the surprise for this long-awaited gift of knowledge that William promised her when he spoke so boldly to her. And of course, yes, she punished him with the golden waters because he made that wrong, boastful claim, test me and let me drink the golden waters that flow from you, so they flow within me, and, well, you know how that went. And that was from the motion picture. So, geography lessons, of course, then are complete. Now, this is the newest scene, only been used once before, when Williams accidentally got a hold of the device because she forgot to keep it with her and was playing music on it and was showering naked under a waterfall, which to her was quite the weirdest thing a human would do because they don't shower, right? They take baths. And so again, she has this look on her face that somebody reports to her that the gift of knowledge that has long been promised to her is finally completed. And I mean, to her, like a teenage Targaryen girl, she can't wait to see what these things look like. And so she does. I mean, she's happy the fact that her catapult, because they only had one type, is not destroyed. William used words of wisdom again because he thought, they are good catapults. But you need something that has a little more power, force, and velocity for distance. So that's when she gets to see the same thing that Sansa was told about. And so she's inspecting each one. They're so unique, so different. Each one has a slightly different purpose. But, when she finally gets to the very end, the one thing that gets the mother dragon's eye, and we're talking about a mother dragon who has dragons, if you talk about dragons, or have a knowledge of dragons, and William is from a symbolic world of old and renowned of dragons from his heraldry, is this thing that has a dragon's head. I mean, how cool is this? To her, this is like, for almost like a Targaryen turn on, just like, oh my god, she loves this thing. It's going to like tear down gates, 3 or 4 swinging, crashing into the gates. The fire liquid spews out of the mouth just like a dragon, catches doors on fire, and they just have to wait for the doors to burn down. The city's overrun and sacked. This is like for her the ultimate power that she's never had before, and so this is going to be the greatest excitement ever. Well, in the meantime, William now has to learn about maps. It's almost like geography, but different. He has to know like the terrain, the difference between the continents and the cities. What's there to know about the wall? Why is there a Black Watch? What is the Black Watch bound? This is like the almost combination of geography and maps that he has to learn. So it doesn't take him long to get through that. Then he has to learn about the Fire and Blood custom. This is a Targaryen lesson. There's certain customs, that comes out like, okay, it's okay for a mom to marry her son, a father to marry the daughter, brother to marry the sister, or an uncle to marry a niece, and like Daenerys, she married Jon Snow, who is a nephew. Not that this would probably be something continued, because, again, William being like her best treasure of all, because he's the only human in her world, and the fact that he had a heraldry doesn't allow him to have the throne, this gave her the reason to adopt his heraldry. She allowed him to take his last name. He swore his allegiance to her, permitted him to live in her world. She made him a suitor. He is allowed to blend his customs with hers, therefore he proposes marriage to her, showering her with a bunch of gifts. Okay, you know how it goes since the motion picture anyway. And so it becomes a historical event for a Targaryen to marry a human. So this is quite the thing for William now to learn of these commonplace customs and practices. Well, then there's the traditions and the fire and blood tradition, about things that aren't practiced, spoken of too loudly, like the fact that when he walked the coals of fire, granted it's a human custom, but it's the simple fact those that were attending it are like in William's world, the secret societies called Freemasons, Illuminati. Well, they have, unspoken of in the original Game of Thrones series, their own type of secret societies. And, not just everyone gets to be picked by the secret society. If you have something unique about your heraldry or something, this is why William was allowed to do his proving himself by walking the coals of fire for Daenerys, and thus he's now in the secret society, the Fire and Blood Society. How rad is that? Okay, so, you kind of gotta look at it. It's like William's kind of, he was still but naive about this, but it was his way to prove himself, and he didn't realize he became a member of the secret society, so he's not even allowed to speak of them to any of the known kingdoms, because it's an ancient ritual type thing, and he abides by this. He's very respectful of that. He doesn't mention anything about the dudes in the red robes and stuff. So he's gained a lot of respect from the people of the House of Targaryen, because some of them, maybe not all of them, are members of the secret society called Fire and Blood. And so, they become very supportive of the queen for taking on this human husband. Well, then he has to get into laws, and this then becomes a near life and death experience. Not so much because of the laws, but because of what the visionary tells Daenerys just before it happens. Because at the time of the last page of time, he said there will come a time he will have a life and death experience, but he couldn't see that far ahead in the future for that time because William hadn't shown up in her world yet. And so this becomes an almost tragic event. Now, first, William does pretty good. I mean, he's starting to feel twinges, unusual sensations, kind of like in William's world, be like motion sickness, car sickness, or a ship that's suffering bad ways from a squall or something. Or you're not really a backseat driver, as per se. You just don't ride in the backseat of a car because of the motion kind of makes your stomach feel strange, and he gets migraine headaches, and he almost has a dizzy spell. Marge, paying him a visit, has to sit him down, gives him some water. But what isn't discovered until after this near-death experience is the fact that William now has, technically speaking, been in a world of Daenerys, which has no effect on them because they're born in the world, right? But they have long longevity. So you might say it takes 2.5 Earth years equal one of Daenerys Stormborn's world years. And then on top of that, the fact that winter is coming, it's not because it's based on these White Walkers, it's because perhaps there is a theory about how the world orbits around the super orange giant, bigger than the yellow star that Earth orbits, known as Sol. And so he gets through most of the laws, and he's like, invited to do a almost finished type celebration or something like that, and he gets really sick and he crumples to the ground really bad, almost like what happened to Joffrey, but not because of poison. And at first it's like normal vomit, but it gets so bad that it gets almost like he wants to die or feels like he's going to die, because he's just spewing up mass amounts of blood after somebody gets him a chamber pot, and he finally rolls on his back and reaches up with his left hand, crying out for Daenerys in a death-like sounding like wing. And not that she's psychic, but she senses something's wrong. The visionary finally confirms, yes, something has happened, you need to go to him. Well, King's Landing's not too happy about her anyway, because she just got the throne, right? So there's a pact made of no hostilities, and King's Landing agrees to this because William, of course, is having to go to King's Landing to learn more laws, not just Targaryen laws, but for the realm of the kingdoms. Because again, where does the throne sit? In King's Landing, obviously. So she's allowed to bring a few unsullied warriors, attack like bodyguards, and so she goes as fast as she can across the seas and what have you. And they know that since they're not there to start a fight, obviously she's not going to be done come with not a very ample enough unsullied warriors. She's not going to start anything there. Her main concern is William, her great treasure, this human that came from the dark blue star from the Valerian night sky. And so they block certain ways, which you're allowed to do, it's not like they're trying to start anything. And that protects her, because somebody could still want to ambush her, And what a better way than, because of William having this near-death experience? Well, there's this physician, and there's this, I was going to use a guy at first, but I thought, well, hey, why not? You got the visionary with gift of foresight, why not hindsight? The hindsight is kind of like, in William's world of Earth, like a psyche, what has already transpired, and things that are happening now. She may have a little bit of future to tell, but not as much as the gift of foresight, which is the best. And she has to do a ritual. It's just kind of gross. She takes a chamber pot, sticks her fingers in it, all 5 of them in her right hand, and she falls into a trance, and she's touching like something like a canvas. And as she's in this trance, her fingers draw something that would almost look like that of an artist's rendition, poorly done, of course, in blood, of like a curtain with tiebacks. And so it symbolically means that he's had the veil of passing, which is something that's never ever happened in their world. Well, she explains then, once she's done with this trance, is because, he should have went back to Earth when the time came, but he couldn't go back, as confirmed by Daenerys. Second, he's been eating food and drinking the water of her world, and so you have to look at it from an almost scientific way, because again, William comes from a world that's more advanced than hers. His DNA is changing. Okay, you got the heaviness on the chest, the thin air he's trying to breathe, the food, the water, it's changing him inside. And even the physician says, well, because humans were a myth and a legend, and here's this only one that walks among us, we don't know what else to do for him, he should be dead, and yet he wakes up, and Daenerys is delighted about this, and she's like, well, is he going to live? And he's like, well, as far as I know, I just can't understand it, how's a human live through all this? When much blood he coughs up, he should have been dead by now. So it's not like the experience that Jon Snow went through. He didn't literally die. It was like a near-death experience. He's probably almost at that point of being dead, and then suddenly comes back. It's something that can't be explained. And it's because the only thing the physician can guess is that he's probably not like us on the inside. And that kind of gets Daenerys' interest. He's like, well, not that everybody's ever done it. People might think it's sorcery or witchcraft, but you'd almost have to cut a body apart to compare with a human. Well, obviously, Daenerys not going to let William be cut up into pieces as much as probably people would like to. But he says, well, he should live as long as you now. And she likes this because now that means he won't die of old age, even if the age did cut halfway back at the very get-go from entering her world, but it kind of slowed down and didn't speed up again until this point in time. So now, like I said, with the longevity and the longer orbits, Daenerys Stormborn of the House of Targaryen, people of the Seven Known Kingdom, they could be well over 200 and some years of age and only look like a human age of, 31 up to 86 years old, and they're actually older than that because they have long longevity. The only reason someone wouldn't live that long is, again, because you got to remember, there is the war for the Game of Thrones. And so if you're killed in battle, well, there goes your longevity. You're already screwed anyway. So it was quite the event that William had this near-death experience called the Veil of Passing. And it's a historical thing. No human's gone through this. It's painful. It's like he's being reborn. And people born in her world don't go through such a painful experience when they reach a certain age. William was not born of her world. That's what the fans have to realize. He's not born of her world. But the near-death experience is spewing up all this blood that should have killed him. It's like he's being reborn. His DNA's changed now. And imagine all the children that, if he, well, if Daenerys permits him, although she'll probably enjoy the pleasures that he gives her, but so long as he acts appropriately. And he will get in trouble later on, even though. But he will get a little bit stronger than he was when he came to their world. He'll probably gain half the strength that the men of her world has, but still not be as strong as them, if that makes any sense. When he first came to the world, he's only strong as a human. So you figure however strong, say, somebody like Dario, for example. Take him as an example. He's born of her world. And if he gets half his strength, okay, so that's shows, okay, there must be because DNA had changed or something. So he might only have half the strength of an unsullied warrior or the knights that serve Daenerys, but he won't have their battle skills. He'll still be low in stature, but he will never again be looked at as frail human. He's matured physically, mentally, and spiritually now through this veil of passing. And it will start to show as time goes by, now that he's gone through this near-death experience. Well, now that William has gone through this near-death experience, he resumes where he left off on learning Targaryen laws and the laws of the realm of the kingdom. Once that's done, he now goes back to Meereen, and he starts learning about the politics. This is a little more in-depth for him, but it's where he has to learn all the banners, shields, each person has a house, just like the House of Targaryen, okay? And it's based on royal genealogy, keeping the bloodline pure, because it was common practice then. So, while he's studying this, it kind of focuses on what's going on with the other kingdoms. I'm sure everybody wants to know. Well, the distant cousin, who, if it was possible and Vin Diesel was to accept this, because he'd be the distant former King Lannis' cousin, and gets a meeting at this rendezvous point where he's rallying other forces from this Harpy King. Yeah, that's right. We thought we'll only see him once, right? Yeah, in the Lost Page of Time. Well, no. He's been getting things set up for himself for overrunning Daenerys in Meereen, because he wants that biggest pyramid. Because, like he said a while back in the motion picture, or even further back in the Lost Page of Time, you help me get what I want, I help you get what you want, you get the Iron Throne for the Realm of the Kingdoms, which the former King Lannis wanted anyway, and I get the crown jewel from Essos, which is the tallest pyramid palace. So there is something starting, and it's going to take a major fallout battle where William is going to have to, with these trained soldiers that he's going to eventually be entrusted by Daenerys to train with human tactics that they won't expect, to get her finally what she has long waited for. And this time, it won't be 3 days, it won't be a week, it won't be a month. It'll be this human who is deeply in love with her. And she knows that he fell hard for her. And she'll actually tell him this, that because he fell so hard for her, that when she finally passes away, they call it the extinguishing of the flame, spirit flame. Okay, because it's not like humans where you pass away and your spirit just goes somewhere. For Targaryens, because they have Valyrian ancestry, it's like, they don't really age as per se. They just close their eyes and never wake up, and that's pretty much her spirit flame went out. And she goes to the Targaryen heaven called the spirit world, where Khal Drogo and her very firstborn await her. So, at that point, he's going to have to lead the new army with his new-founded friend Grey Worm, who's going to lead Unsullied Warriors, and they've got these now gifts of knowledge weapons that he's built for her, and of course that's still yet to be paraded for her approval. And it's going to be the mass-out battle. I mean, if people hear the Lord of the Rings and how many people were out there and all that, it's going to be something similar to that in her world. Granted, she could still use the dragons, but then again, the question is, based on Series 7, does she only have 2 dragons? Because this guy from the Iron Islands King used a hypnotizing horn to take one dragon over that she rode, and now she has to kill that one. Or did a White Walker turn it into an ice dragon, or this ice dragon get born from a special egg that the White Walkers took? So there's a lot of factors that's going to determine how this will come about, because she is also going to have to go through what a special secret ritual again called the blood mixing ritual, because she has a depression that people aren't going to see her as powerful queen, because either she doesn't have all the dragons, or because she has to every now and then keep locking up these other two, and people start doubting her power because she already lost the throne after 3 days, right? So how is she going to convince these people, you can still follow me, and I'm not going to make the same mistake with the Dothraki. They don't trust me anyway, because they couldn't defeat the dragon warriors, because like their sickle swords are like butter knives trying to cut into a steak. Didn't work, and the samurai swords chopped all their heads off, or samurai-like swords from the unknown world. So, you know, they're not going to trust her, and so she has to have this whole new army of those she freed at a certain age level, and they will be trained with tactics that no known kingdom of the 7 known kingdoms are aware of, because these will be a blend of Greece, Rome, you name the tactic, Troy, the 7 known kingdoms, who, not all of the kingdoms, but those that would try to keep her from trying again for the Iron Throne, they're not going to see this coming, and they're going to see this as very strange, and when they stall, that's going to be the advantage point. Not to mention when it tells them, yes, scream, shout, make blood-curdling sounds. It was normal in our world, because that makes the enemy afraid when you're screaming and charging at them. And, you know, to Daenerys, that'd be like a savage type thing, because none of her other like warriors do that, and none of the other knights either. They just charge, you know. So this is going to be like the whole new warfare concept that William's introducing to these new army that eventually he is going to have to train. So as it winds down, it goes back to the scene where he tells Daenerys he's tried to learn Valyrian, and she kind of finds this amusing, because it's the hardest language ever. Unless you're born Valyrian or have that Valyrian and mixture of Targaryen blood in you, it's not an easy language to pick up. So she kind of decides that I'm not going to hold it against you, because again, it was optional to see if you could. Best not try to speak Valyrian, you know, because like the Dothraki, you pronounce something wrong, considering there's a lot more consonants and vowels, it could be his own undoing. But what really amazes her, and what a way to end this particular part, is that he has self-identifies himself in her world. This greatly stimulates her beyond belief. You know, if you do the deep core research like I did, there is 4 classes based on Valyrian and Targaryen beliefs, of like 4 elements or something like that, or based on the solar system where she's at. And William found where he can combine 2 of the 4 to explain his species being in her world. So it becomes a historical self-identification, another moment of history, and the look on her face, it's almost like it's just sensual. I mean, she's like, wow. Okay, she's like totally impressed with him at this point. So she's got this look on her. It's like, okay, this is cool, because this is history for her house, Targaryen. So there's a 5th, all new classification under Valyrian spoken language by a human of all things for her house, which is symbol. Again, symbolism is everything. That gives her house power because of William's self-identification. This is how I explain myself. I'm part of this class, and part of this class, and therefore it becomes a whole new terminology. And you just see the expression on her face. This is like, wow, okay, she's totally impressed by this. And so it leads to a great celebration of lovemaking. So that's it for this narration, and I will be back here to explain what happens from there, because he has one test that she has to put him through to see if he's passed all lessons. Once the Lord Instructor tells her he's passed everything they could teach him, there's nothing more they could teach him, she has to see how good is he at strategy. He is allowed in the meeting room for the first time, and she's going to have him look at this map, and he's carved some extra things to represent the gifts of knowledge in it. So he has to place them somewhere. He's going to be allowed to move things around, and it's all based to see, is he got the knowledge he needs to have? Will he pass? She even does something naughty with his bottom, but we're not going to get into that, just to see if he can stay focused. So I'm not going to spoil that for you. You'll just want to hear the next narration, okay? So tune in next time, and we'll give you the next narration of what Khaleesi's Dragon Spirit of the Game of Thrones 2 has in store for you.